Russia and Ukraine have exchanged more prisoners on a second day of a major swap. Each side handed over 307 soldiers, a day after exchanging another 390 each. Meanwhile, at least 15 people have been injured in a large-scale Russian drone and missile attack focused on the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. With ceasefire efforts otherwise stalled, Ukraine's President Voldymyr Zelenskyy said new international sanctions are needed to force Russia to agree to a truce.
Ukraine's air defense system fights to keep Russian missiles at bay after Kyiv came under heavy attack in the early hours of Saturday. It was one of the largest aerial assaults on the capital since the war began and followed a major prisoner exchange between Russia and Ukraine just hours earlier. Emergency services searched buildings that were hit by drones and missiles and evacuated residents from burning homes. As dawn broke, people in Kyiv began to inspect the damage. Putin doesn't want to end the war. I wish they'd agree to a ceasefire. To bomb people like this, poor children. My 3-year-old granddaughter was screaming and scared. War is war, and no one is safe from it here. Our enemy is particularly vicious and immoral. The kids called me at 3 this morning screaming, "Mum, we were hit. The balcony is on fire." Writing on social media, President Zelenskyy said it had been a tough night for his country and called the attack a fresh demonstration that Vladimir Putin is not serious about bringing an end to his invasion of Ukraine.
Well, I'm now joined by DW correspondent Rebecca Ritters in Kyiv. Rebecca, how serious was this latest attack?
Well, it was certainly very loud in the capital, as you heard in that report. Pretty scary night. I can attest to that. It was incredibly loud. We were hearing gunshots. That's the air defense working all night. We could hear even the drones in the city where I was, and some of the interceptions as well. Definitely a sleepless night for many people here in the capital, as you saw in that report. Many spending the night in bomb shelters or, in fact, in the metro system where many people go during these attacks. It was certainly one of the biggest, not the biggest, but one of the biggest that we've seen in Kyiv in recent weeks and months, and definitely, a very terrifying night for many here. Of course, Kyiv was one of the major targets, but it wasn't the only place targeted. And we had President Zelenskyy saying, we saw attacks in Dnipro, in Odessa, in Sumy region, just to name a few. So also pointing out, really reiterating in his remarks about these attacks that this is just proof that Russia is simply not serious about any kind of ceasefire or any peace negotiations.
And then, on the other hand, we witness, and you've personally witnessed, the largest exchange of prisoners and civilians since 2022. The second phase is now underway. How is that going?
Yeah, we've just been hearing that the second tranche, that 307 prisoners have now been brought back, and they're on Ukrainian territory, I should say. Yesterday we saw 390, and they're going to hopefully equal tomorrow, if all goes to plan. We'll have another 303, if my mathematics is correct, and that will make 1,000 prisoners. So it's 1,000 for 1,000. That was agreed upon in talks in Istanbul last week. Now, it's certainly a step in the right direction, but Zelenskyy said it was the only concrete thing to come out of the talks, and that, basically, other than that, the talks simply were Vladimir Putin just wasting time, buying time. But of course, it is a step in the right direction, as I just said, and we were there yesterday. It was a really, really emotional day as we were watching families reunited, and also very bittersweet as we watched a lot of people who were there waiting for some kind of information from their relatives. Let's take a look at how it unfolded. An agonising wait ends in tears of joy and relief. 270 soldiers and 120 civilians have returned home. Some spent months, others years in Russian captivity. Many tell us they had no idea they were being released.
We were outside. They took pictures of us. Then we were brought with a prison transport vehicle to a plane and then to the Belarus border control.
When we arrived, it was only after the blindfolds were taken off. Only after that we understood that this was an exchange.
Many returnees bear wounds of war or are battling poor health. Nadia's husband can't hug her just yet. Infected with tuberculosis, he's quickly moved into isolation. Thank God he's home. For many families who waited near the border, there were no joyous reunions. But they're hoping the freed prisoners have news about their relatives. So you'll see these people here, they're anxiously waiting, they're holding pictures of their loved ones, hoping that the people who've been released will be able to give them some kind of notification. Perhaps they'd seen them in one of the detention centres, perhaps, you know, they've seen them along the way and they can give some information about their loved ones. This prisoner swap was the only concrete agreement to come out of talks between Russia and Ukraine in Istanbul last week.
The return of our people is exactly what we are always working for. And now is definitely the time to put more pressure on Russia so that we achieve not just one result, but everything that is needed.
For now, it's time for these former prisoners to hold their families close and build back the lives they've missed so much of.
I really want to see my son. He's 3 years old. I haven't seen him. He was born on February 21st, and on the 24th, the war began.
37 months is a huge achievement. It's had a big impact on our relationship. Is Didor alive? Thank you, God.
Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says Moscow will give Kyiv conditions for what he calls a sustainable, long-term and comprehensive peace agreement once the prisoner exchange is concluded. Rebecca, do we have any information about what those conditions might be?
Yeah, they're apparently the Russians, that is, drafting a memorandum that they say that they will submit to Ukraine after this prisoner swap has taken place. President Zelenskyy has said that this memorandum is a mockery to the world. The fact that it's taking them so long to write it, it's just simply, you know, Russia buying more time. We don't have any information about what's going to be inside the memorandum, but if we take the words and some of what we've been hearing that came out of the talks in Istanbul last week and other things that the Russians have said in the past, we can expect that in the memorandum they'll be calling for these maximalist demands, and that is, of course, ordering Ukrainian troops to move away from any territory near where Russia has occupied, that they want to take wholeheartedly those areas, even though they haven't actually occupied the whole areas. They want Ukraine to give up any aspirations of joining NATO and even the EU, and there are many other, very severe demands that are really Ukraine's red lines. So really whatever is going to come out in that memorandum, it's unlikely to be something that Ukraine can agree to. And as I said, President Zelenskyy already just calling it a mockery.
DW correspondent Rebecca Ritters there reporting from Kyiv in Ukraine. Thank you very much, Rebecca.